Well, what if the resurrected Jesus appeared to us and asked us 8 questions? Wouldn't we want to know what those questions were, and wouldn't we want to think a little bit about those questions? Because those must be important questions. If the resurrected Jesus appeared to us and asked us 8 questions. Well, that's precisely what we have in the Gospel of John. The resurrected Jesus in the Gospel of John appears to his disciples 3 different times, and he poses 8 questions to them. We don't have all 8 of them in this reading. 3 of them come just before, and the last one is left off, but we have 4 or 5. But I'm going to talk about all 8 of those questions because that's important. If Jesus is going to ask us 8 questions, we want to think about what those are. Because Jesus, of course, isn't just asking 8 questions to the disciples and to Mary Magdalene and the women followers in the gospel. He's also asking 8 questions of us. Those questions he's asking to them are the questions he's asking of us as well. So we're going to let's look at all 8 of them and see what Jesus is asking. What is the resurrected Jesus asking of us? Because the resurrected Jesus is trying to teach his disciples how he is present now. He's not present in a physical body anymore in the same way that he was. He's present in a new way. And he's teaching his disciples how he is present. And one of the ways he does it is by appearing to them and asking them 8 questions. So that first question that the resurrected Jesus asks, it's to Mary Magdalene. It is, why are you crying? What an amazing thing. Jesus Christ has just been crucified, been through the trauma, the horror of a crucifixion, and laid in the tomb for 3 days and been resurrected. And what's the first thing on his mind? Why are you crying? It's about ministering to the main woman disciple, who's the follower of Jesus. What he wants to do is minister to her. What's on his mind is how to minister to her. What he cares about is that she's crying, and his question to her is, why are you crying? And it's not the kind of question you ask because you're going to say, well, let me solve your crying. It's the kind of question you ask when you say, I want to be company to you in your struggle. Why are you crying? That's the most amazing question. Why are you crying? And so we know Jesus always wants to be present to us whenever we're crying. Anybody who's crying, Jesus is present. The resurrected Jesus is present and is asking, why are you crying? Because he wants to be there with them and to know. The second question that the resurrected Jesus asks is, what are you looking for? And isn't that a question that we all need to hear Jesus ask us? Isn't that a question Jesus is asking us all the time? Why are you crying? What are you looking for? Who are you looking for? That's another way of saying, what do you really want? What's the deepest desire of your heart that's keeping you looking for something? St. Ignatius's version of that is, what's your deepest desire? His advice to us was always to be asking God what our deepest desire was. Not the little desires up here, the false desires and the distracting desires, but the deepest desire. If we could touch that and ask God for that, that's the desire that God can only help us to get to. But that desire, our deepest desire, is also God's deepest desire for us, because God dreams through our dreams and desires through our desires and wants through our wants. What do you want? What are you looking for in life? Have you found the way? Have you found the direction your life is going? Or are you still looking for it? The third question that Jesus asks is, do you believe because you see? Do you believe in me because you see? That's not going to be good enough for the resurrected Jesus, because Jesus isn't walking around the dusty roads of Galilee Now Jesus appears to us and disappears, but is still present to us. And so we're going to have to, so what this is the question is basically the question, do you believe because you see, or you do believe because you see me with the eyes of your heart? Because the eyes of our heart, the eyes of our love, see what is invisible. See this little girl right here? You see her? We all see the same little girl. I will bet you $1 million I don't see, when I look at her, I don't see what you see. Do I? No, because you see her with the eyes of your love as well as the eyes of your head. And Jesus is asking us, do you believe in me just because you see? Or can you see me with the eyes of your heart and with your love? Can you see what is invisible to everyone else? And the next question that he asks, and we gotta follow the story because I swear this is Jesus' sense of humor. So we got all the guys, the guy disciples are together. We got a gang of the guy disciples, and I mean, Peter, he's so great. He always just, says he can't wait, he can't be patient, he can't wait for Jesus. He's got to make a move. And so he says, well, I'm going fishing. Because he's a fisherman. He had a fishing business. He knows fishing. He's like saying, you can see, he's kind of puffed out his chest probably. He said, well, I'm going fishing. I'm not waiting on the resurrected. I don't know about this resurrected Jesus stuff, but I know how to fish. I had a fishing business and I'm going fishing. And the other guys go along with him, And so they fish all night. They don't catch anything. They do all the right stuff. They do everything he knows to do, and they don't get a thing. And then Jesus appears on the shore. And what does he say? Have you caught anything? Now that's funny. I think that's Jesus' sense of humor, because he knows they haven't caught anything. They've been struggling. They're tired. They're exhausted. They're hungry. They've been struggling. They're anxious. They're all night long. And then Jesus says, have you caught anything yet? Now that's funny. But isn't that a way of Jesus saying to them, you decided to go back and do things without me? How's that working out for you? How's that working? Have you caught anything? And Jesus is always asking us that question, because when we have decided that, I don't really need God to do this because I'm pretty good at this. I can just do this myself. I don't really need, and we decide to go backwards and then Jesus comes and he helps us with his sense of humor and says, have you caught anything? How's that working out for you? Have you worked all night and you're empty? Have you worked all day? Have you worked hard and you're empty and you don't have anything? And it's his way of saying, come back. You've gotten lost. Come back to me. And so then, even funnier than that, is they drag this net full of 100. They're dragging it. They're struggling, dragging this net up and they get up with their fishing. What's there? Fish. Jesus already has fish on the fire. He's already cooking fish. Not their fish. He says, bring some of the fish you caught. Jesus has already got fish. He doesn't need them for fish. I think that's one of the funniest lines in the gospel. They're struggling to bring up 153 fish, and Jesus says, well, yeah, bring some of the fish that you caught. Jesus already has fish. He doesn't need them for that. Now, if that isn't funny, I don't know what is. I bet they got the joke. And so then Jesus asks them, do you love me more than these? Do you love me more than all of this that you think you're so hot shot about and all? Do you love me more than this? Do you love me? Do you love me? And then that last question, which has been left off of our reasons, but it's actually the last question. And it's when Jesus says, well, what about this guy? What about John? And he's pointing to the beloved disciple, and the beloved disciple and Peter have a little bit of a contest going on. And he says, well, what about him? And Jesus says, Jesus has just told Peter that he has a position in the pastoral, he has a pastoral position in the structure of the church. He's going to be the one who has that position in the structure of the church. And Peter is already worried about the guy who doesn't fit in. He's not part of the structure. He doesn't fit in. He's just a beloved disciple who loves Jesus. He doesn't have a position in the church. His only position is to love Jesus as a disciple of Jesus. And Peter is already bad. He's already worried about it. How's he going to fit in? And Jesus says, what is that to you? What if I say to him that he will be with me? What is that to you? You feed the sheep and follow me. And so we have those 8 questions that Jesus uses with his sense of humor, with his care and his love and his sense of humor, to teach his disciples how he is now present to them. He's present to them in the most ordinary things: fish and bread, charcoal fire, the gardener that Mary thinks is a gardener. Jesus is present in the most ordinary things. And that's part of what we celebrate today when we celebrate First Communion for our first communicants. Because when they receive the host, you know what it's going to taste like? It's going to taste ordinary. It's going to taste ordinary. And that's the most beautiful thing in the world, because that means that the presence of the resurrected Jesus is in the ordinary. It's in the most ordinary things of life: your parents, your family, your pets, the food that you eat. Jesus doesn't normally come bring his presence to us in some miraculous way, but Jesus is present to us all the time in the most ordinary ways. And the absolutely ordinary, that's where Jesus most of the time shows up. And so we have these 8 questions that Jesus is using to try to teach his disciples how to discern his presence, how to know he is present to them now. And they're the 8 questions that Jesus is always asking us. Why are you crying? Why are you crying? What do you want? What are you looking for? Do you believe only because you can see? Or can you see me with the eyes of your heart and your love? Have you caught anything? Have you tried something else? How's that working out? Have you been working too hard and you still haven't? Have you caught anything? Do you love me? Do you love me more than these? Do you love me? And if I say this to somebody else and this to you, what is that to you? Your business is to do what you're called by God. So the resurrected Jesus is always present to us in the most ordinary things, which we are going to celebrate so much with our young communicants. So let us come then to the altar. And let's remember, what is the resurrected Jesus about? As soon as he is raised from the horrors of the crucifixion, what is he interested in? Us. He's interested in being present to the people that he loves and cares about, how to minister to them, how to be present to them as they're crying and suffering, how to help them to find their way in life, how to find their deepest love and desire in life. He lives to be present to us and to care for us and to minister to us. That is where we're always going to find the resurrected Jesus. He's always present to us in that way. So let us come to this altar and witness our young children receiving their first communion and know that Jesus is here. This is the presence of Jesus in our midst.